What's up, guys? Welcome back to Tidal Gardens. Today, I've got a special guest for you guys. This is Phil from Polyp Lab. He made the trek down from Montreal to come visit us. We're going to be talking about the backstory about how we even met, about some of the products of Polyp Lab, and I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a perspective of some of the behind the scenes on the industry side. Obviously, some of like the crazy salacious stuff we should probably avoid for the purposes of camera, but there's a lot of safe yet colorful stories to share. Before we jump in, Phil, I do have to tell these guys that I might have slightly nearly killed you this morning. We went to breakfast at my favorite joint, and right as we were getting finished with breakfast slash brunch, Phil has like
An allergic reaction, I guess. Yeah, something
it
like,
was really scary. So to the point that like, okay, so we're gonna go to CVS, see about some Benadryl real fast. But just in case, why don't we have that Benadryl in the parking lot of the emergency room just in case we have to go in? And that was about an hour before this. So yeah, Phil is being a real trooper for recording here with us.
hopefully, I'm not gonna fall asleep and all is gonna be good, but I feel good.
So the packaging of the Benadryl did say that there might be hallucinations involved. So this could be an incredibly colorful podcast session.
Yeah, it's gonna be thrilling. First, yeah, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me to your podcast.
Fantastic. We met, I think, what, 2 years ago, I believe. We
Two
were
years
at
ago.
Reefapalooza, Orlando.
Yes.
And this was like the first time I believe that we met in person. And we didn't have any kind of like business sponsorship relationship or anything like that. This was just like a meet and greet sort of thing. And it was a very memorable thing for me because we were at a steakhouse, and like the meal is great. It's whatever resort that we were staying at, and we got to the wine list, and typically this is like so off topic, but typically these wine lists at a steakhouse, it's hit or miss. Sometimes they just have some bottles that are like okay, and people will just spend money on them. That's great. Occasionally there's some winners on there. And so Phil was like, "Well, do you see anything that's actually really good on this wine list?" And I looked through it, and I'm not like a super wine aficionado, but I like a very specific kind of Bordeaux. And I happen to see a bottle. Like, okay, there's really only one bottle on this list that's a winner. It is a poor value because it's getting like the steakhouse resort markup. And I was like, there's basically one bottle. And I explained why this was like a legit bottle. And Phil was just like, let's just do it. Let's
Let's
go
just
for it.
do
I'm
it.
like, are you sure? And at this point, I'm like, okay, maybe we should now talk about let's split this bill just so that we're all covered. But Phil picked up the whole thing. I think that bottle was $600 or something like that. So it was a monster. And I told him, if you ever visit Akron, I'll get you back. So I bought that exact same bottle. So guys, this is a for the wine nutsos out there. This is a first growth. This is a Haut-Brion. And yeah, so this guy right now is decanting. And so after this podcast, we will have something to partake in.
That's
So,
gonna be fantastic. That's sure for sure. We met in Orlando 2 years ago, and first thing I noticed about you was the way you dressed, right? And
I like to
for
dress up a
for
little bit.
years, it's been a bit of a trademark for me to go to those trade show and try to dress as professionally as I can. And that show didn't make exception. And yeah, I noticed you. I heard about your business and your career, but it was a great moment to finally met you.
Thank you. I mean, the dressing up thing, it is literally a hobby of mine at this point because I've kind of turned my hobby into a business. So I kind of lost the reef aquarium part of my hobby set. So the men's clothing thing kind of filled that gap for me. And if there's like folks out there that have never been to like a coral or pet trade show, it's very casual. It's t-shirts, it's shorts, it's whatever. And that is perfectly acceptable, but I don't get out much. So I have to take every opportunity to dress up and go for it every single time. So this is what I enjoy doing.
Yeah, it's I would say that it's reasonably the same for me. Clearly, when you work in a warehouse or in a manufacturing plant, you don't have those occasions to dress up and actually go
Yeah.
in a suit somewhere.
Yeah, it's true. There's not a lot of opportunities. But let's start talking a little bit about your company, Polyp Lab. We've used your products for a really long time. By the way, full disclosure, Polyp Lab is a sponsor of the Tidal Gardens YouTube channel. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure.
But we only mess with companies that we have a long track record with. And we've been using your products forever, probably since they first came out. I mean,
Mhm.
we're talking like over a decade. So, like when we first started talking, like a couple years ago at Reefapalooza, it's like, yes, we can even have this conversation because there's like a long history of us buying and using the product. So we're very comfy with that. Primarily, I wanted to talk about the two products that we use the most. One is Reef Primer. We recently did a sponsored video talking all about dipping in general and how Reef Primer like fits into that whole framework here at Tidal Gardens. And the other is about coral feeding and your product Reef Roids.
Mhm.
So we have been using Reef Roids like easily over 10 years. I think that for the most part, it's considered like one of the best coral foods out
Mhm.
there. There's a handful of others, you pick your favorite, but it's in the marketplace of these high nutrient powdered foods for corals.
Absolutely.
Um, how did that all start? Because you manufacture that yourself, right?
Yes, we and it really comes to the beginning of how it all started, right? I have three companies with a partner. We have Xenia North America, which is the distribution branch. We have Polyp Lab, which is a manufacturing branch, and we have an operation company or a real estate operation company. Xenia is the first company that started off in 2003, and in the beginning, it was really to get into the dry goods, and I focused on German importation to be distributed in North America. So, not to name any, but Giesmann Leach Technique Germany was my the first brand that trusted me enough to start. Then Tanzi got had it on pretty quick. Then Rofos, D&D. I got with many different brands into it. I started distributing Polyp Lab in the days because Polyp Lab was a company by itself, right? And Dave, the owner, Dave Lee, that hi Dave, if ever you're there. Dave was the owner of Polyp Lab at that time. Also was in at school for becoming a doctor. So to make a long story short, he after we started distribution, he said that he would get out of the business. So as I had trust in this product and that I was loving the product, I bought the company. That was in 2010. I bought everything, brand names, trade secrets, whatever you can name it, and we build it out or manufacturing procedures or process from there. And then from 2010, then 2011, we got first break with Forsman and Co. Research in regard of the efficiency of Reef Roid as to grow corals, along with different other products that was available around. Of course, we came up first, and we also had the other break, which I think I'm not sure which one is the best or which one is not the best. It's when we first started to be more focused on creating a time lapse video. The start of this trend of doing time lapse video about coral feeding is something. If we haven't invented it, I'm pretty sure there's people that were doing it maybe a little bit before us.
Maybe me.
Maybe you did it, and for us, for our company, it was a turning point because it was showing corals in movement. It
Hmm.
was showing a movement in corals. It was not as you look in aquariums, okay, you see the corals, you know there's something happening. Clearly, we all know they're animals and not flowers, please. And they go to a point where the animal becomes alive, more alive than real, right? So that gives us the second break. It's clear that Reef Roid is potent material, okay?
Yes.
And I take a risk, guys. Each and every time I go in the warehouse and at the factory, I might have an allergic reaction like I had this morning with this fish omelette. But yeah, after all those years, Reef Roid is creating some breeding
Think about that for just a
issue.
sec. This is
Yes.
this is a seafood product that Phil is manufacturing. That every single time they're making a batch, it could be this is it.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm going to add the diamond for you. Another at the plate. I'm going to the plate for you guys, and thank you because you guys responded very well. We're surely the most popular brand of coral food in the world at the moment, and it's just that there's a misconception being carried over in regard of the potential, the nutrients potential of a product, and the fact that people see it as a negative effect or a negative portion of it, like the nutrients being pollutant, right? And the thing is, it's never going to pollute more than the quantity you're going to put. You don't need much.
Let's talk about that for just a sec,
Yeah.
because you just said it,
Yeah.
but a little bit goes a long way. And I know that you can definitely put too much in the water to throw off your entire tank's water chemistry. But I've noticed that if you feed too much directly to a single
Hmm.
polyp or something like that, you can get in a situation where it singes the coral. Like the coral might have like a bad reaction to it. But that's commonplace for any powdered food that I've
Oh,
seen.
clear.
Like even
Mhm.
like the pellets that we used to use from those are from overseas, someplace in Europe. But like if you fed more than like one one pellet, you're probably gonna have a problem. You might
They're
get some burning going on in your coral.
they're gonna go. Most the reaction we've most seen is that the coral's just gonna get it out. You're right.
Okay.
And if you, it's clear that that's one thing that, and I'm going to talk about ore product because pellets, I'm never sure
Yeah, and
exactly what's inside.
And in fairness, I think that I might be like conglomerating a lot of my experiences because we do use so many
Yeah.
different products in our mix. Um, but I have to wonder also because talking about time lapse
Mhm.
photography and videography is that oftentimes for effect we probably put more on than we would normally day to day feed
Absolutely.
just to get it on camera, and I'm wondering if that is doing a disservice because that then it's like the whole thing about like the toothpaste commercial. Like in a toothpaste commercial, there's like they cover that
How
sucker.
much is enough, huh?
And so similarly, like we are putting in like literally 5 times more than we would normally feed a coral because we want to show the coral feeding.
Yeah.
But that is not what we do on a day-to-day basis. And
And it all comes to the system as well. The system that you have. We sell our product to farms, a lot of coral farms, you know, and your guys are professional. You have export systems that are simply out of this world, right? Just systems that are able to take overload, like no, absolutely no problem. When you go to a closed circuit at home, we recommend using the product twice a week.
mm-hmm.
And if you use it more, clearly, if you don't have those nutriment or anyone that claims that their product has no pollutant or no nutriment, then it's not a food, right? And that's where we're it's getting touchy, and it's getting where, what is your system? What do you have in it? What's your bioload? How
Yeah.
much do you feed? And our product is only animal product. There's no soy, there's no wheat, there's and nothing vegetal in this. And we think that at the end of the day, you're going to get a better value of using a product that you don't have to put that much, right?
Right. Yeah.
Than using too much and then create an issue. Of course, if you're calling us and you say, "Well, I dose potassium in my tank or nitrate in my tank because it's not high enough." Well, put more Reef Roids, see what it does, right? And it's nothing detrimental. If you want to do this hobby chasing numbers, it can get pretty stressy over time.
Yeah. It gets less fun in a hurry.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we believe that negativity in regard of marketing any kind of product is counterproductive.
Yeah.
Always focus on your stuff, focus on your product, make sure that you bring the customers the best you can, and customers going to reward you at the end.
So let's kind of talk about the whole process of dipping and Reef Primer. Now, right off the bat, what is Reef Primer?
Reef Primer is actually a coral conditioner which actually will help the corals remove or get rid of the elements that you don't want to see on corals or around them. We're talking about flatworms. We're talking about some types of parasites. We're talking about microbes you don't want to see around. All sorts of pests that in your video you actually demonstrate the efficiency on some corals. The main aspect of primer for us was A, that the product would be efficient, and B, that it would be gentle on corals. And that's the two goals we tried to get together in order to get this product out and make it easy for customers at home and obvious to have a dip they can rely on, and that's gonna get them into a safe space to put this coral into their own collection at home.
Yeah, in that video, I talked a lot about how there really isn't a perfect dip out
Yeah,
there. I think that's kind of an unrealistic expectation for any product or any process. And I think that the folks that expect any specific dip to take care of all of your issues and just be like, I dipped my corals, check, right? That's not a thing, right? But the one aspect that I really focused on was how gentle it is, because one of the issues that we tend to have with customers that they're not in the business of dipping corals. They're not a professional coral farm. They're not a store. Simply put, they're just the end user getting it into their tank, and they read online that you should dip your corals, and you should. The problem that you run into, though, is that when you're bringing in these corals, they are stressed out. They've just been, shipping for like the last 24 hours, and they're at their weakest point that they're really ever going to be. And at that point, in doing the right thing of dipping, now you just killed the coral.
yeah,
And from a business point, that is now a DOA concern on my end, even though that coral would have been fine had they done nothing. But in order to do the responsible thing in trying to do some kind of pest control, they've essentially killed the patient. So that was one of like the things that really made me gravitate to your product, is that of the different things that we've tried, it tends to be the most gentle. There's one that arguably might be the most gentle to the coral, but is highly toxic to humans.
that's one of the key as well. We're into a hobby business. We don't want to create the risk, an additional risk for obvious and people at home. That's sure, and it's one of those many steps that customers and obvious needs to take to actually be sure that they have an aquarium that is successful, but also to make them feel comfortable about what they do or what they can do to make it as live as possible without creating more issues. And it's more than a hobby in the fact that we have dogs, we have cats, we have animals at home, and we're not dogs hobbyists, we're not cats hobbyists. We're actually having an aquariums, and those animals are pets. So it's important to be able to have products that keeps them safe and also give them the best chances possible as long time survival.
Yes, absolutely. And just on the hobbyist end, it's very it's very comforting to think that the place that you're buying from is pest free. And I can pretty much guarantee you that's not a real thing. Go ahead and just as a helpful suggestion, Do not trust anybody's system. Just assume that they have it. Protect your own tank, please. Okay. We do a very good job with pests. We would never say everything coming out of here is 100% safe. That's ridiculous for as just as far as like a claim would go. Um, the other thing that often comes up in conversation about your product is it is a potassium salt based formulation. It's a powder,
Mhm.
and that you then mix in salt water, and that makes your dip. So the word on the street is that it is merely potassium chloride, which is very, very inexpensive.
Mhm.
And there is a markup difference with Reef Primer versus just potassium chloride. I was talking about this with somebody that works at another very prominent, very high end coral farming place as well. And he was saying, well, we use potassium chloride. It's different than Reef Primer. There's something else going on in Reef Primer. I don't expect you to
Oh,
like
I can't
just
disclose this. Otherwise, I'm gonna get back in Canada and have a contract on me. No, no, no. I can't say anything.
no, but basically there is something more than potassium chloride going
Yeah,
on.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think that the most important is about getting the raw material as pure as possible
Yeah.
to make sure that you're not going to run into trouble. You have a product that's taking care of issues that are very important for people. First step is to start with products that are quality products as the purest level possible. So we're using products that are always USP,
What does
lab
that mean?
grade. Well, it's a lab grade denomination for the rock chemicals we use in Reef Primer and also in other products we sell. Um, that also can explain the margin gap that exists
Mm-hmm.
between different dip or different product. It's very important to realize, and that was it's not because not right now prices are going up everywhere. There's a premium to pay when you want to have quality, and this premium always been up since decades.
So
Hmm.
sometimes we use different additives to like just to boost calcium, alkalinity,
Hmm.
magnesium, and a lot of times that is something that you can buy in bulk from like a water softener store. However, the purity becomes more of a risk. And at some point, fairly early in the process, I don't think it is worth saving money on certain things if you're introducing trace amounts of something really bad to your system.
Absolutely.
And that's an interesting point again about like finding reference grade raw materials because if you just look for the price of like really, really pure ethanol, it's very expensive, and ethanol is dirt cheap typically.
Yeah.
But there exists a bottle of ethanol out there that's $100,
Yeah.
and it just depends on how pure do you need this stuff. Like, are you refining pharmaceuticals? It's going to be reference grade stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, I could see where the price ladder would reflect that, and these days, when so many hobbyists they're so persnickety about their water chemistry. They're sending ICPs out every couple weeks and stuff like that in some cases. That this stuff is gonna matter. So yeah, I think that like going with like the least expensive budget option could have these other effects that's unintended.
It's all a question of process, and in many aspects of life and as well in our industry is those the saying that you can't always get away with chemicals because at the end of the day, manufacturers just create chemicals or mix stuff that already exists. The discussion's been really going around, and it's always going around. In fact, it never stops about salt. For example, well,
Oh my
salt is
gosh,
salt, right?
salt.
And it's a touchy subject. It's emotions boiling up when we talk about salt. It is salt, but it's not salt. There is a process. There is a way that you want to have your salt in a powder form that's going to be easy to mix. There is quantity. There is quantity of additive you have to put into your salt that's need to be well mixed. And all of these things is a question of process. Otherwise, we will use the modern salt, like people say, and everybody would be happy. But We know it's not the case, and it's not working like this.
Yeah, salt is a weird one. Do you manufacture salt?
No, absolutely not.
No.
We don't.
I don't know what it is about salt specifically, but in this industry, there's a lot of like a tribal mindset when it comes to salt. There's like salt wars,
Yeah.
and again, kind of like peeling back the veil a little bit on the business side of things. Salt is an incredibly low margin product.
Mhm.
Like there's not a lot of money to be made on salt. I think that the expectation is they're going to make their money on other products in their suite after they've identified like a salt brand that they're comfortable with. So for example, if they love Fritz salt, they might buy something else from Fritz.
Yeah.
If they like Julian Sprung's Two Little Fishies product,
Mhm.
they might be like, I'm going to buy all, I'm going to buy the Akira Sea salt. I'm going to buy such and such. I'm blanking on all of his million products. But so maybe that kind of explains it. But like people really do get heated about salt discussions, like
Eh,
Tropic Marine and just
oh,
any of these brands.
the Crumb Solution salt as well, the Pro Salt, the Pro Milk, Red Sea. We can name
A million
dozens
brands.
of them and hundreds, and it's again, and you have the process of manufacturing the product, and you have this other part of the process, which is to bring the product down to the customers. Transport costs, logistics.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely amazing how much money you have to carry on when weight comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're lucky with our tip. It's not that big of a container, right? But when you're talking about a 50 pounds bucket of salt to move this around, big part of the cost is right here. Exchange rate risk, right? Because salt, there's some that are made in China, and some are made in America, some are made in Germany, some are made, well, in Moyen-Orient in French. Sorry, everybody. Yeah, English is not my first language. I'm sorry, Tan, but in the Mediterranean area
Mm-hmm.
basin, and you don't bring this by UPS from there.
Right,
It's a
exactly.
container. It's by seats. Come here. You have to unstuff. You have to warehouse it. It needs to leave from your place, most likely on a skid. You hope so, right? And it's getting more and more challenging as we go over the chain and over the years.
That kind of segues into another topic that I wanted to talk about with you. And it's the business of dry goods because we don't really carry dry goods. A long time ago, we dabbled in it for a little while and we just stopped. You never really dabbled a lot with livestock, but you've been primarily focused on dry goods because previous to Polyp Lab, you had another company. You still might have another company that distributes other brands of equipment and materials. And there's always aspects to this business that are just complicated. That just complicates business. It seems so easy for on my end. It sounds just to get coral, sell coral, but there's a lot of granularity
Mm.
in that whole business process. And similarly with selling dry goods, there's just stuff that happens. I don't expect you to like uncover all the skeletons,
No,
but
clearly
I was
not.
I was shocked just by hearing like just some of the stories about because typically what you sell to stores,
Yeah.
not to end
We
users.
don't sell to end users. We do have an operation or website, polyplab.com, that sells directly to end users, but we would like, or we really like the relationship we have with the stores, the retailers, in
Hmm.
regard of the relation they have with our product, the way they use it, and the way they can reference it to their own customers for them to buy it. Um, we need Everybody needs to be in a win-win situation out there. Most importantly, the end user, the customers, and that might be something in the balance of business today is hard to achieve. But if we are in a situation where we believe in each other business wise, we have to believe in the manufacturer, we have to believe into the distribution channel, and of course we have to believe in our dealers and our retailers to be able to do that job, be happy about doing that job, giving an efficient return for their customers, and also make a living.
Yeah, is that belief well placed sometimes? So this hobby attracts some colorful folks,
Oh yeah.
and so I see it sometimes on the consumer end. I'm like, okay, this person's interesting to have to deal with. But when they start making businesses, that's when they get the extra colorful people sometimes. And some of the things that, like, I was talking to a livestock wholesaler, and he was like saying, like, Than, 1/3 of every shipment of livestock that I sell out of here, 1/3 of it does not get delivered properly because the business owner did not open their doors.
Unfortunately, it's a common
That
occurrence.
sounds bonkers to
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
Like, what do
and
you mean the store's not open?
yeah, the store is not open in, and you can, again, there's something you can name hundreds of situations. The box has been left at the door. Somebody left it there. Another one took it. It came in damaged, and customer service at this point with either UPS, FedEx, whatever the courier company is, are not. I'll say they're too busy to take care of you these nowadays. So um, too many of these occurrences makes the cost going high as well. Makes
Mm-hmm.
makes product cost more money, but you need to find solution. Whether it's going to be packing them properly, putting terms of business that are more strict, adding a signature to the reception, and
Which wouldn't help if the store's not open.
no, it wouldn't help if the store is not open, and it's never either. Even at the end user side, more and more we're coming with deliveries that are time sensitive, and we can have the deliveries by appointment, but that costs more money. There's
Yeah.
a solution for everything, but there's always two solutions to one problem, and but money is always in the mix.
Yeah. I guess also speaking of the money side. So when I did dabble with dry goods, so I'm still selling to the end user. And this is a weird situation because on the livestock end of the spectrum, we might have like one chargeback a year, as far as
Oh,
like a credit card
that's
chargeback.
great.
And oftentimes, sure, it's just a situation of credit card fraud. These things happen. I just have to like mentally block it out
Mm.
and just bury it in volume and just not have to worry about it. But when I did dabble in the dry goods world, there's so much fraud that happens with credit card fraud. It's crazy. Now, you probably don't see that as much from the wholesale end just because you don't deal with end users and random credit cards.
No, 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 no.
But I this is something that I learned, is that there's plenty of like businesses that just simply don't pay their bills.
Yeah, they live in the same world as we do, right? And you we don't make credit or ask credit reports from the people we're dealing
Yeah,
with, but
and obviously no names, but
no,
like
no,
these stories, like when you start to like get more into the business side
yeah.
of things rather than just the hobby side, it's like it's very eye opening. It's like so and so doesn't pay their bills, so and so doesn't, and everybody is still like cordial and they're
It's
friendly, like
yes,
in public at these trade shows and stuff like that. I'm like, how are they all even talking in the same room? There's a 5-figure deficit going on
uh,
in that interaction. How are they not fist fighting? And sometimes they do fist fight, but I'm
it's not to be seen, right? We yeah, trust that these are our stories, but it doesn't happen often. But if there is situation where there could be a lot of tension, but this industry is small. At the end of the day, we're not
very small.
very small. We're very niche. We can say we know pretty much everybody that gravitate around it.
Again, there's like a Wild West aspect to this niche industry, and maybe I'm just the one that's naive. Like maybe this is normal business to business thing where there's just like crazy stuff that just happens in every industry. But that did kind of take me for just as a surprise because there's been many like after event dinners
Yeah.
that I've been a part of. Everybody has like a great time. It seems like everybody's like, longtime friends and stuff like that. And then like a week later, I hear a story about like, oh yeah, so and so at the table was trying to get this other person at the table kicked out of a conference over some beef. And I'm like, we were just hanging out.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, it's
yeah,
no problems whatsoever. And then sometimes like so these stories bubble up. I'm like, interesting.
yeah. That's the way we see. I mean, personally, my first Magna Boston. I had there's it needs to be fun. We need to have fun in this business. And I remember this is where I met David Saxby for the first time, and I met Stuart Beatram, Doug Thompson with Deltec USA at that time. And just a short story here, it was my first Magna show. I was trying to help at the booth at Deltec, and there were this huge AP1006. I don't know if you ever seen or remember it, but with all those EIM pumps around it, a monster, a beast. And Germans are packing their stuff like it's called. They do the good thing. It traveled all over the place by air to Boston. It was the main piece of the booth, and I get the task of unpacking it. So clearly, I take a drill, get the screw out of the wooden box and whatnot, take the skimmer to get it out of his box, and crack. The bottom skimmer's totally crashed and got destroyed. Why? Because I forgot to remove the screw
Oh
at the
no.
bottom of the wooden box. So we had a destroyed acrylic part, the main part, and I remember Doug he was nice and it was okay. There's nothing you can do. David was livid, but it was a mistake, right? And but it came to be funny. Um, 90 years later, no, a couple of months later, it was a funny
Did
story.
you did you buy a $10,000 skimmer that day?
No, no, we find it a way to trim off and make a custom version, of course. And
Okay.
yeah, I mean, yeah, that was the first my first Magna 2008.
That's a very nice introduction into the trade show world.
Oh God.
There's some crazy just trade show related logistics. Like so people always ask like am I going to be an exhibitor at a trade show at any given trade show? And the answer has been no since about 2014.
Mm,
It's so much work, it's so much stress.
yeah.
And as like a coral vendor at a big trade show, there is the chance that you just don't make any money. In my case, I think I lost like $5,000 that day or something like that weekend. So I'm like, yeah, I think I'm retired from this whole scene. There's like a lot of stories from the road about just how difficult it is to set up every single show, it seems. I believe one of the shows, because this happens every show, but somebody's booth doesn't show up.
It happened to me, and you shipped your stuff express, right? Your show items, and they don't show up, or you have to go pick them up an hour away driving. Your TV's getting broken, so you go to Best Buy to buy one, and then after 2 days, it's no good anymore. You bring it back. No,
I
it's a joke. But
don't think it's a joke. I think people do
there's
that.
probably people doing it. But it's like selling salt at the end of the day. You go to a show, but it's really to sell something and make profit later on. Some people make money. It needs to be profitable for people. If I talk only for me as Polyp Lab, it's an expense, but we feel it's important to show up and to have those interaction with customers. But most of our interaction are with the industry people over there.
Yeah, that is kind of the aspect of it that I enjoy, and I think it's because I was away from trade shows for like a good solid 8 years, and I had to be dragged kicking and screaming back into that just to attend. Like I wasn't even going to them, but once I did, I was like, you know what? This is really nice. There is a benefit to having some face-to-face interactions because again, naming no names, but I always kind of assumed that because we were a very visible YouTube channel, that, people would just know me through that and that was good enough. But this industry was like very slow to catch on to YouTube and to any and all social media, like
Yeah.
really slow.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of folks that when I initially met them, they just had no clue who the heck I was. And it's not me being like stroking my own ego or anything like that. But when they finally did find out, that changed everything.
For the better. And I would add that this is for sure for Polyp Lab a turning point in the way we've been able, starting 2015, 2016, to get into the social media aspect of the
Yeah,
hobby.
this is definitely something I wanted to talk to you about
Yeah.
because again, this uptake into the industry was very, very slow. It's still slow. We're still not close to there yet, not even close. But Polyp was one of the first brands that I noticed that was really active in getting out there and supporting a lot of creators, big and small.
Yeah.
Like the number of small creators like on Instagram and whatnot that would be showcasing your product. It's like they're making a very concerted effort to go for this market. Like that was pretty groundbreaking in my opinion. But please like tell me more about your experiences with that. Like how is that working out for you? Like what is it that you're even looking for?
To be an influencer on social media, and I guess in regard of any topics, what you're going to create as a value. At there is a value to what is being created. The value is going to go in a direction where, as more authentic the video is, as more detached from a product you are,
Mm-hmm.
as more of a critic you are to be seen as an influencer, as much what you're going to say is going to have value. I think that the way that we worked with this is we offered our products to many different people. Had aquariums, farms, places. We've been lucky to have also material that was showing that it was already a good product, you know. And we offered it to, of course, farms, aquariums, public aquariums, very influential people in the industry at that time. But we also wanted to get on with people that are everyday user guys that are there. They have a tank, they love it, they use the products, they are eager to talk about it, they are eager to put more energy in and to show what they have achieved and what they have accomplished. And I think it's in regard of that process that we decided to create a more tied up community. And it's important because this feeling of community, and I'm having a reference to the Reef Pro we had, the Reef Pro programs we had, in which we had 5 or 6 people that were working with us, creating some content, and we were simply helping them to get the words around. We didn't give any script. We didn't ask them to do very specific stuff. Do what you feel. Do what you like to do, and they did. Sometimes it's not without risk, right?
For sure. Yes.
And the risk is you can start with people, but it doesn't work, right? And going to the extremes of just explaining yourself or gluing what's broken never works in any kind of situation in life. So you have to be smart enough and adult enough on both sides to say, okay, let's just stop it, and let's go for another project. Let's do something else.
Mm-hmm.
And we discussed this already. You don't want to get into a situation where you're tied up. I think it's a position that can reduce the value of what you're trying to send as a message.
One of the I guess major currencies in content creation and influencing is authenticity. And I
Yeah.
think that it is really it's in very short supply. It's one of those things where you can go from a trusted resource to a corporate shill really quickly.
Yeah.
And it's as on the creator side, you never, at least I personally never want to diminish my voice for money, because that's almost never going to be like a great trade-off, especially in this industry.
Yeah.
And like I was always like very protective of that voice. So there's I get requests daily to promote some random thing that I've never used before, and I don't mess with it. So again, working with you, kind of not a hard decision on my part, because we already use and purchase your product.
Yeah.
Um, by the way, that does kind of bring me to another aspect. I think that especially this happens, I think, in smaller influencers, is they want to get free product.
Mm.
And I think that some they fall into this pit, this trap, where when they're receiving free product, they wear it like as a badge of honor, where it's like, I don't have to pay for stuff anymore. I've made it to that point. And that is actually not a place where you want to be.
It is one of the situations where it can reduce your value as the message bearer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously that sounds like, oh, well, must be nice to be able to buy anything you like. But as a creator that's done this, I promise you guys, it is not the flex that you think it is. And you are so much better off having already purchased or are willing to purchase whatever it is, simply because the autonomy that that gives you over that interaction is so incredibly powerful. Because, for instance, if I had purchased your product, I am under no obligation to say anything nice about it. Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
nothing. It's like, if I don't like Reef Primer, guess what? I didn't get any of it for free. It was my complete independent, autonomous right to say whatever the heck I want.
Exactly.
And that is an incredibly liberating thing. I think that once creators kind of get suffocated by that, is when they kind of like run into some issues about losing that authenticity that's so valuable.
In all due respect, you don't want to become a mascot or a
A mascot.
sandwich man. Yeah. And there's people, and it's great when they say, when it's announced, I work with this company,
Hmm.
I'm with them, I use their product, it's here, and that's fine. That's fine. But there's always a choice to make when you're going to social media. You can become a professional for a company, and it's fine. You're going to be this professional for a company. But if you really want to be a critic and you want to be independent, you need to take your side.
Looking at it from the other end of the spectrum, looking at it not so much from the creator side, but from the brand side, there's a lot of other things that has to go into that calculus too, because oftentimes you haven't met this person before,
No,
not in person.
no.
You're really only familiar with their following, or the
Hmm.
size of their following. And I think that really brings up like two major issues that maybe there's many more, but I see two major issues. One is the idea that, like, how valuable is the following really? Because they might have a gigantic following, but that might not be the following that you're after.
No.
Like some of these channels are gigantic, but I have a feeling that those aren't your customers. They'll never be your customers.
A sale is not a sale if the money's not in the bank.
Hmm.
What are you able to close out of the click you get, out
Right.
of the exposure you get, out of the traffic you get?
And that is very difficult to parse. I mean, I know that there's a lot of like analytics that can kind of like dig into that better, but sometimes it's not. It's kind of amorphous. It's very difficult to quantify that effect. But sometimes it's like, I can tell that your audience is under the age of 6, and
Yeah,
they
no,
don't have credit
absolutely.
cards.
And but the sample being in this industry as being a small industry makes it difficult to have any kind of trends or
Hmm.
sales tendency. If you're in the shoe business, or if you're in the food industries, extremely competitive, you can bang on those results and on some statistic or analytics because everybody needs to eat and everybody needs customers. There's all people needs to eat. While in our business, the sample is so small that you cannot get into trends. So sometimes you're going to have a gut feeling. Sometimes you're going to say, okay, it's not much followers, or but the effort that's put into the image, that is put into creating something interesting, creating something fun, makes it worth it to uh, ask those people if they want to do some things for us. Even at that point where we are at the moment, we receive content from people using Polyp Lab and their tags, and we just acknowledge their existence, help them to push them on our network, and I think it's the greatest relationship you can have, to have those people, those customers that are working with you on many different level. They help us, we help them.
Hmm.
It's a win-win situation, and that's how we want to be in position. It's where that positions we want to be in. Um,
And kind of not to throw like a storm cloud on that positive
yes.
viewpoint, but there's the other risk is that going back to the idea that like we haven't met before.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Sometimes like and it's sometimes these things just don't work out, and the influencer is just problematic.
It
Like
it becomes a problem. Yep.
yeah, it's you just never can tell. It's like this is just somebody that developed a following, and for whatever reason it's like, "Oh, I can't do this with you anymore." 'Cause it turns out like, no, absolutely not.
It
Like we have an
becomes.
issue.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's we might have been lucky, lucky in that situation where there's still a screening being done, right?
Mhm.
But that screening is not being done at the beginning, right? Over time, you make experience, or you experience working with some people, and then you go like, oh, okay, that's not the way I was expecting it, because this is the worst thing working with human resources is you don't always know what to expect, and it's human nature. It's fine, it's okay, but if you really look at the specific of it, um, you get a look of all around the microcosm of that person, um, and and I think it's getting more and more difficult these days to find people that are really committed only to one point of the influencing business they're doing, without getting caught into this wind or this hurricane of getting followers, because that's what they want,
Mhm.
getting more views, getting more clicks, and being able to live from that work, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I know, but not as you probably know, that it takes a lot of work to
It's a
get into a hundred
tremendous amount.
thousands YouTube followers. It's a lot of
I
work.
think there's only been like what, 4 in the saltwater world that's done it.
Yeah,
I think it's Bulk Resupply, it's Reef Builders,
yeah,
it's me,
yeah.
and it is Danny's
Yeah,
Aquariums.
there it is. And let me go back to what we discussed early on about livestock and dry goods. I'm in dry goods because livestock is not my thing.
Mhm.
You know, you can be in livestock because it's your thing, but it doesn't. You need to focus on what you're good at, and that lesson I learned it over time, sure, but we needed to focus on what we're good at, and to stay authentic, have quality product. But you need to keep that. It's easy. There's a saying, and I'm going to make a free translation from French to English. It's very hard to get your reputation up, but it takes seconds to get it to have it down.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm sure you can say it better in English than me.
No, you did pretty good. You
It
did
was
pretty
good.
good.
Oh God.
So guys, thanks so much for Phil to join us. I'm so glad that you are so far surviving your trip to Tidal Gardens. It seems like it's an accomplishment these days.
Well, thank you for Benadryl. Love Benadryl, by the way. Hey, that's a spot.
So hopefully, like you've enjoyed your hallucinations and this fever dream of a podcast. And all right, guys, I will see you all next time. Take care. Uh-oh, I'm blanking. Danny's something's aquariums.
Yes.
Is it Danny's
Not
aquariums?
Danny's
Oh
aquarium.
man, how am
Oh,
I
that's
blanking?
bad.
Oh, he's Becca. Who's it's like who's that other YouTuber? Danny's aquariums.
Danny's Aquariums.
No, you had.
It's Danny's
You got it.
aquariums.
There it is. There it is.
We will edit that up.